Super Metroid is a game that needs little introduction. It was released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo, just 3 years after Metroid 2, and was made by Nintendo R&D 1, managed by Gunpei Yokoi, and directed by Yoshio Sakamoto, the same group that made the previous 2 games, though Sakamoto did not work on Metroid 2. They waited until hardware was capable of making, in their words, a good action game, and this was their focus. They kept the same core game from the previous 2, taking this opportunity to use what they learned from the previous games and the new technology to truly make the game everything they wanted it to be. They even intended this to be the final Metroid game, in Sakamoto's words, finishing it in the most beautiful form. The level design philosophies of Metroid 1 and 2 were combined, making a world that was explored at the player's will, but still ushered down a somewhat linear path. The controls and physics were tightened up so you were more easily able to move and fight without the game's systems holding you back. The new hardware let them make much more visually distinct rooms and even memorable set pieces to help with navigation. And for the first time, a map that revealed itself as you explored. They once again looked to the Alien franchise and the work of H.R. Geiger to create a dark and lonely atmosphere, and very detailed, creepy creatures. They could even use the new technology to tie the game's narrative into the game itself. Welcome to Super Metroid. But Naka, you may ask, are you really going to do Super Metroid again? You've got like 30 different playthroughs on this channel. To which I say, try and stop me. For those of you who may be new, I have a long and storied history with Super Metroid. I used to speedrun the game, do challenge runs, play hacks and randomizers. I'm very familiar with the game, more so than most people, though certainly not on the level of the top speedrunners. In my own opinion, it's one of the best games ever made. So what am I doing differently this time? Honestly, I think the one thing I haven't done is a traditional playthrough. I want to show you the game as it was intended to be seen. I want to examine what the game did to lead you and help you learn and discover. I want to talk about story and lore where I can, and I want to talk about the game's inner workings, while showing off some glitches and exploits, because let's be honest, I'm not sure I even can do a completely traditional playthrough anymore. So with that said, let's play Super Metroid. Before we begin, I want to apologize because I am very out of practice in this game. It's been quite a while since I last really played it. And even though I want this series to be everything that I could dream it to be, I know I'm not going to remember every tip and trick, remember every little bit of lore, remember how to do everything, and be able to execute everything how I want it to. So, I suppose partially I'm apologizing to myself, because I know what I want this series to be, and I know how difficult it's going to be to do that. But I'm going to do my best to lead you along the way. So for starters, unlike the previous 2 games, which we just got done playing through, so we can see what they were thinking and what they got to with this one. But for starters, you saw there were 3 save states, which is more than either of the... No, never mind. Metroid 2 had different save slots. But this one actually tells you information about it. And it's cool and stylized. Look at all the fancy art going on here. So first thing we're going to do is go into controller setting mode and rebind the controls. Because unlike many, not just Super Nintendo games, but console games in general, hardly any of them let you rebind controls, and Super Metroid let you rebind everything. And it's probably good that they did, because if you look at people playing the game now, everybody uses a different keybind. I like to think what I use is kind of a standard keybind, but like, I'm also sure everyone will argue with me about that. I'm also going to go into special settings mode, and I'm going to turn Moonwalk on for reasons that we'll explain later. Moonwalk is kind of a neat thing that was added to this game, but for the most part doesn't really add anything. But it lets you have some fun. I'm going to leave item cancel on manual. I just habitually cancel items. And honestly, I'm not even sure what item cancel auto does. They also let you use Japanese text if you want that to show, which I thought was very interesting. Of course, I predominantly speak English, so I'm going to leave it on English. And we don't even need a story recap of the previous games. Both games had their stories entirely written in the manuals. You had to play the previous game and read the booklet in order to know what's going on. But with Super Metroid, you don't really need to know anything.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
And so we are first in control of Samus herself. I didn't want to speak over that intro because I wanted to let the mood and the atmosphere tell its own story. Even for just being a recap, and until the end being a somewhat upbeat story, it still had a darkness to it. A dreariness, an unsettlingness to it. And now we arrive on Ceres, right after the signal was sent out. and there's no music playing. It's very quiet. In fact, you can hear machinery playing, making noise in the background. And some of that may simply be our teleporter here, or elevator here. But I think that adds to it. We don't know what's going on here. And it's only fitting that you would be very apprehensive. This also, as far as a tutorial goes, does give you a brief time to get a feeling for Samus in a relatively safe environment. Even though it may not feel safe. You don't have to fire or attack or do anything yet, but you're learning the basics of moving yourself around. You're learning the basics of exploring. You don't know the layout of this area. You don't know what's here or where your goal is. Every room you do not know what's going to be in, but what is in that room could be anything. And here we find the title screen. Only the Metroid is gone. The researchers, however, are still dead. 3 of them here, and they even all have different sprites. So we know something bad has happened and the Metroid is gone. But we still don't know what. The music stops, except for the baby Metroid's cries. And we're very quickly shown Ridley. Ridley! So this Ridley fight, you are not expected to win. I'm doing kind of a poor... Can I stand on top of the door? I can't. If you manage to hit Ridley 100 times, you will actually shake Ridley off. You know this by... close. You know this because Ridley actually drops the infant Metroid before flying away. However, if you are defeated instead, because you are not expected to win this fight, if you're simply brought down to a low enough health, then you will get knocked away. And in a panic, you have to leave. 1 minute to get out is actually quite generous. And you're retreading a path you just ran through, so it should be in relatively quick memory about where you're going and what you're doing. Come on! I always get hit by the steam somewhere around here. Of course, if it's Ridley, who we are quite intimately familiar with, then we know the space pirates are at work. So despite that we thought we had ended the space pirates on planet Zebes, we're going back to see what became of them. So the Ceres station served as something of a tutorial, where you predominantly are moving down and to the right, though you are also forced to backtrack. And though you are tossed into combat, you are not expected to win. So, all in all, it is still a very safe environment that taught you a decent amount about playing the game. Now that we've landed on Zebes, our adventure is actually beginning. And Metroid has such an amazing sense of dread. Not only with the Ceres station, but now landing on Zebes, Crateria, that we're in, with the acid rain falling and such dreary, spooky music. If you once again try to traverse to the right, you'll quickly come across a wall that you can't progress through. Though the fact that this block looks very different from everything else around is going to be a key. But otherwise, you cannot progress any further. Well, technically you can. Not that this really lets you do much, because even once you're up here, you can't do a lot, and even if you come down on the right-hand side, you're merely going to be met with a green door you can't open. So this is actually, though there are several ways to get around this and move around, you're still very much restricted to moving to the left. This is another wall that you can actually wall jump up, though it's very precise. You pretty much have to wall jump off of each one of these ledges frames, if not only a single frame, before you're too low to wall jump off the wall anymore. Wall jumping is something that Super Metroid is kind of known for, but also for casual players, it's known to be something very difficult to pull off. Wall jumping wasn't really a thing that existed in games around this time, aside from maybe Mega Man X. And people had a hard time wrapping their head around how to wall jump. And especially by today's standards, you don't wall jump in the same way you would expect. So there's even an additional layer of not quite being able to grasp. It's actually quite simple to wall jump. It's just a matter of knowing exactly how it works. So we have to move in. I love how dark everything is. Samus's idle animation is very subtle. Just not even pixel animation, it's sub-pixel animation, because nothing is actually moving, but it gives that sense of her breathing. Just because it is impossible to stand completely still. And on top of that, given how dark it is, you can see that her visor is glowing. As we progress to the left, the bugs crawling around really feels like this place has been abandoned for a long time. And you very quickly see these blocks, which we once again can't do anything with. Oh, something else that I should note, as in Metroid 2, you can still duck. However, in this game, you can use the shoulder buttons, or whatever you configured them to aim diagonally. This is one of the things that they added in Super Metroid in order to make it a good action game. They wanted the path to combat to be the path of least resistance. Whatever it is that you need to do to fight, if there is an enemy up there, you should be able to just hit them. And we see an open passage on this side, but we still cannot go down. We see those suspicious blocks again over here, so that may be something to return to. Another small passage here that we cannot go in. A door here, which we know we can go in because we just opened a door up above, and another door that does not respond to our shot. Once again going in, though, we're met with a small passage. So we do know very well that once we gain the ability to go, that we will gain an ability to go into those small passages, and we should be keeping those in mind. Having played the previous 2 Metroid games, we can assume that's going to be the morph ball. Not only the insects in here, but the smoke. This is a very old area that hasn't been touched since we were last here. Because this will very quickly look familiar as the passage that we used to escape Zebes as the base was exploding at the end of Metroid 1. We are back on Zebes after all. Now this passage goes down quite a way. And one of the reasons, honestly the biggest reason, aside from perhaps fun, and for speedrunning purposes, the only place that you're going to save time, is the reason I enabled the moonwalk. So the moonwalk is quite simple. If you're holding down the attack button and press the opposite direction, you will walk backwards. You can also do this aiming diagonally. If you do not have moonwalk turned on while you're holding down the button, you will simply turn around. Before a power-up that we get later on, this is very simple to do instead with moonwalk on, simply by letting off for a brief moment as you press the other direction. Once we do get that power-up, honestly, you probably shouldn't be running around with a giant ball of energy on the end of your gun for a long time anyway. But I mentioned the moonwalk because it lets you do a glitch right here. Samus's falling speed is technically capped. You hit a terminal velocity. However, with moonwalking equipped, you can bypass that. Assuming I don't hit that tiny platform. I'm a bit sad because you should be moving fast enough to clip through that. And it's real neat when you do, because you hit the bottom down here, moving exceptionally fast, and it kind of glitches the graphics out. I'm not actually sure why it is that this works, but it's... So what I'm doing, this technique is called Moonfall. And what I'm doing is... I'm actually buffering the jump input. You have to aim diagonally, hold fire, and then I buffer the jump input by jumping and then pressing jump again in the air, so I'm currently holding jump. Now as soon as I let off fire, I will effectively jump. So what you have to do is jump while you're turning around, and in the turnaround animation, which is very simply done by pushing in the other direction to make me walk backwards, and then letting off fire. As soon as I let off fire, I start turning around, and then this buffered jump will make me jump immediately. Ah, dang. I was hoping to get down far enough and then kind of scoosh in a little bit to go down there, but maybe that's something that I can show off later on. Down here, of course, is where we fought Mother Brain, and this is the pit of acid that killed me many times. But on the other side, this isn't what we normally went to. That wasn't the passage up Torian. Instead, an elevator down. And if we take the elevator down, we arrive back in Brine Star, where we started Metroid 1. And I think what's very interesting is if you actually look at the map in Metroid 1, where you came down in Brine Star right here, where you started the game, was actually very close to the entrance to Mother Brain's lair. It was perhaps a screen off. So it makes a lot of sense that they could have simply connected this elevator up there to Mother Brain's passage. However, the fact that somebody did that shows that some work is still being done down here. Now, if we come down and go right, we will quickly encounter a barrier we cannot go past. This right here, which you will also remember from Metroid 1. But if we go to the left, you'll recall this is exactly where we found the morph ball. I'm not sure why it's back, but I'm not going to argue. And on collecting it, something knows we're here. So we currently cannot get out. Well, I mean, we can. But this block looks real suspicious, so you'll probably try shooting it and find that it goes away when you shoot it. If we go to the right, now that we have the morph ball, we can go down here. Not that this does a lot, but we shot a block that looked exactly like these before, so we can probably shoot these. This normally took us down to Kraid's lair, but instead here it simply ends off. Maybe due to the explosion in Torian, or maybe it was rebuilt. But that brings us to a Chozo statue and missiles. So the weapons are selected on the top of the screen. By pressing the select button, you will toggle through all of them. Currently we only have missiles, though. There is also an item cancel button, so no matter which one you're on, you can press that button to go back to your beam. Getting out of here can actually be somewhat tricky, but I've done it 8,000 times, so I actually know probably the easiest way to get out, but I remember as a kid having trouble figuring that out. And now we go back to this red door, which we grabbed a missile which has a red tip, and we have a new weapon. We might as well try it on the new door. It does respond, but it takes all 5 missiles to open up. I recall when I was playing this with Barry, she actually didn't immediately put together that you had to use the missile on the door. She fired 1 missile at it, but it didn't open, and she only had 5 missiles, so she didn't want to waste them. And that's understandable. Of course, coming from the previous Metroid games, we know that the missile opens up the red doors. And this game was also built with the previous Metroid games in mind and the previous player base in mind. And if you watch the opening, not tutorial, but if you stay on the title screen and it starts playing doing the attract mode thing, it very early on, I think in the first demo reel, it does show you opening a red door using 5 missiles. So going to the right now, once again the security sensor finds us. We can morph and go over here and get missiles. And you'll recall once again that this is an exact location from Metroid 1. Only this wall is blocked off. Again, maybe it was Torian exploding that caused it. Now, something else you may recall was in the ceiling right over here was an energy tank. And it's still there, though we can't get it just yet. I've found, and I'm not entirely sure why, even though you shouldn't be able to shoot through this, if you're moving a little bit, you can. And one thing I know is that these faces are actually sprites. They're not blocks, and I wonder if that has something to do with it. I'm going to try to wall jump off of it. Yeah. It's a sprite, because whenever you wall jump off of a sprite, you see it shake like that. This isn't something you very often see, because most sprites are enemies, so if you wall jump off of them, it hurts. But you can. I think it does it with frozen enemies? Or maybe it's a unique case with only very few sprites, I don't remember. But, yeah. Shaky head. Well, now that we have the morph ball, there is some fun we can have back up. And something knows we're here. That's still creepy as all heck. Now, for one of the main antagonists of the Metroid series being the space pirates, this is actually the first game that you see space pirates. Right here, in fact. So the alarm has woken them up. The whole area has been woken up and is alive again. So we know the space pirates are back, and they're doing something. So it's going to be our goal from here to exterminate them. So this is a neat, slightly different kind of space pirate that actually climbs on the wall instead of walking around on the ground. There are actually several kinds of space pirates in this game, and several kinds of AIs that they can have. There's this one here, for example, that climbs on the wall. Will shoot at you when you come close, and will jump from one side to the other. You can use the power of aiming diagonally upright, though, to kill them fairly easily. I found jumping up the left side of this room to be the easiest way to get up it. We're back up. Life has come back. We can see the gamers. Now, we have missiles, so we can go in this door. But we also saw this door earlier. And we can morph and go in here, or maybe not. We'll come back to that later. Recall those blocks, though, because that isn't the first time we've seen those blocks. Now, these enemies are always a pain in the butt, and as a child... Oh, perhaps it's a good idea, because these guys are also a pain in the butt. As a child, I found out that you can just kind of edge forward, and as long as the enemy is just on the edge of the screen, they will not attack. Of course, my aim was pretty crappy as a child, and I couldn't just as easily jump up and shoot such a precise target in the air. Okay, I guess that's all of them. A map. It's actually pretty obvious how to use this. All you have to do is run up against it. It's got something sticking out that's gun level, and other than shooting it, running up against it is probably the next thing you're going to test. And we get a map of Crateria, though we can see this odd elevator over here on the right, which already tells us, or going down to Brinestar, which already tells us that not everything is on this map. But we see Brinestar, Meridia, wrecked ship. Very quickly now we've seen how large this area is going to be. We also see an S up there, a passage going out to the left at the top of this, and a passage going down to the right with a dot. So we should go take a look at those. I'd run across this room, but... I forget what those enemies are called. I forget what all these enemies are called. Every enemy in this game does have a name. But the only name that I can remember is Gamers and Menus. That's all I can remember more names than this. Okay, so with the power of our map, we know this is a save station. Or at least it's an S, and if we hop on in and stand on this... So, Super Metroid does use the Japanese confirm and cancel. So the button on the right side of the controller is confirm and the bottom is cancel. This will throw you off a lot. if you're used to the English button canceling, as you'll jump on the save station, hit no, and then go, and you have to leave the room and come back in before it gives you the prompt when you stand on it again. That threw me off more than a few times. Got the, they're not rippers. Or are they rippers? I know there's a real heckin' fast one. There's also a Ripper 2, which means this one is probably the Ripper, and the fast one is the Ripper 2, which is a very creative name. Now, we know that here there is a passage going off to the left, but we still can't go anywhere due to this suspicious wall. We also get the Screes, or Shriek Bats, whatever they feel like being called today. And we can go back down here now that we can morph. We also saw this on the map. Now this is the room that if you just run along the bottom, you're fine. So, I don't think you can walk, I think you have to run. Something else Super Metroid added is a run button. And I'm a little give and take on the run button. Because, on one hand, I feel like as you get familiar with the game, you end up just running everywhere. You don't really walk so much anymore, but it is also nice having a difference between the two speeds. And you get an ability later on that makes use of the run button. In later Metroid games, especially Fusion and Zero Mission, due to the simplified controls, there is no run button, and I don't actually like Speed Booster triggering automatically. So I don't know if I want the run button for regular gameplay, but I very much want a button for Speed Booster. And the addition of a run button in this game actually caused quite a number of problems. Come on, I want that missile. There we go. I just wanted to fill up on missiles before we go in here, because there's a dot. Now, we've already seen a dot, which is the M down there, the map station. These dots, it wasn't an S like the save station, but we don't know what it could be. Another point of interest, though, for sure. And it is the bombs, given to us very early on. We don't have to go through quite the adventure we had to go through in Metroid 1 to get the bombs. You'll also notice that the door's staying open, which is a bit unnatural. But that's fine. Let's just grab the bombs and get out. Oh no. This isn't a Chozo. This is a Torizo. So you can shoot him in the head or the stomach. If you shoot him in the head, his head actually blows up, and he starts walking back and forth around the arena like a madman. He spews the items out that you can shoot to collect items such as missiles, and he has another attack, I think, where he spawns little duders that kind of race across the screen, but I destroyed him before you could see that. So the Torizo is considered a machine, an automaton. We're not entirely sure of its purpose. It may simply be security. Something that activates in order to punish whoever is trying to take the item. But just that little moment of scripting, and this is once again what Super Metroid does. There's so much emotion in the lonely, dreadful atmosphere. They said when they made Super Metroid that they wanted to make it like a movie. And I think they took that in the perfect direction. Because on one hand, you can read make it like a movie and go, okay, so it's very plot heavy, very story heavy. But instead of doing that, they filled it with little moments like this that just create a scene, tell a small story here entirely through you playing the game. And if Super Metroid does nothing else, it conveys so much with no words. So now that we have the bomb, we can get out of here. Because had we fallen down here and tried to get out before, you would have gone up here and quickly found that you can't get out. Not with these blocks in the way. But now that we have the bomb, we can. However, you can also get out this way. Oh yeah, first try. That is a move called Alcatraz Escape that is done in speedrunning. Because it is much, much faster than laying a bomb, waiting for it, laying another bomb, waiting for it, and getting out this way. And it also points you in the direction you want to go, which is to the left. However, instead, I'm going to make a run back to the ship, where I can save, and I can take a break. Until next time, everyone, this has been a rather lengthy introduction. I imagine progress will speed up greatly over the course of the game, and I have less and less intricacies to speak about, but this is our introduction to Super Metroid. I also apologize because I am going for 100% items, but I am absolutely not going for speed. Until next time, everyone.